pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Ms. Salcha?
Here.
Mr. Lindemann?
Here.
Dr. Gomez?
Here.
Mr. Ramos?
Here.
Mr. Bering?
Here. Public comments, Alma?
No, sir.
None. Action items, 2A, discussion action on the approval of Douglas Unified School District number 27 to enter into a contract for construction with Adolphson and Peterson Construction for the Douglas High School Building Addition Project. Ms. Samaniego.
Good morning. Before you, you have the contract that our architect and our staff from E+ has been working with Adolphson and Peterson. The contract has been reviewed numerous times by our attorneys, their attorneys, and what you have before you is the final document with all the changes made and recommendations by our attorneys. The contract here is on the page 9 is what we're going to have to sign once you approve. And we do have Alan from E+ on the line for any questions. He's been really the person in between our attorneys and Rob and Adolphson and Peterson. Once we get this approved, construction, I'm pretty sure, will start next week on Monday. They will start getting on the campus and start the process.
Okay, so before we get into board discussion, Mr. Soto, is there anything that you want to point out about any of the intricacies of the contract, anything that generally are things of consideration that the board needs to know?
No, not really. Everything went through our attorneys and their attorneys, and everything it should be in place accordingly.
Was it reviewed by the facilities board as well?
The school facilities board?
Yeah.
No, I don't think they get involved into
This
reviewing
contract.
contracts.
Right, because, and then I guess the first question I'm going to have for you, and then I'll let the board, because I've got more, is the draws that are made according to the contract, are the warrants, are they cut here, or are they cut at the state? We are the fiduciary
Correct.
agent, right?
Correct. Once the contract is approved and construction starts, then the Adolphson and Peterson is going to start submitting, what do they call it? I forgot the name.
Like invoices?
Like invoices on a monthly basis or whenever they need to. Yeah, it goes through us, but then we ask for reimbursement right away from the school facilities board. They've been pretty good at, so far, sending us the monies. So one of the things that we do first is just make sure, once we get the invoice, we submit it to the SFB right away, and then it takes less than a week for the SFB to wire the money to us so we can issue.
Well, I notice there's, and to me, it's important that there's a provision in the contract that if the money isn't available, and I think it's very specific in there, that there is a time period in there that the contractor it agrees to wait because of the way
Correct.
public institutions operate, especially school districts.
That's correct.
But that's the reason I asked you, but the draws are made here, but they're furnished to the district by the
By the school facilities board.
Okay.
Correct.
And, all right, that's all I'll ask for right now, and I'll open it up to the board. Members of the board, do you have any questions regarding the contract? Mr. Lindeman?
Should we get a motion on the floor and then we can have discussion?
Sure, go ahead, why don't you make a motion to approve, then we get it.
I move to approve the contract for construction with Adolphson and Peterson Construction for the Douglas High School Building Addition Project.
Is there a second? Second. By Mr. Ramos. Okay, discussion.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, what were the nature of the changes that were made?
I will say it was all legal language, but I'm going to defer that to Ellen, who's been working with the attorneys on both ends. Ellen, can you hear us?
I can, and if you don't mind, if you could repeat the question again, sir. I just missed that on my phone. It's a little bit of a bad line.
Yes, so the question is, the changes that went back and forth between our attorney and Adolphson and Peterson and the recommendations. So the question is, what were those changes in the contract and due to what reason?
So any changes made by the attorney would generally to take the AIA 101 contract and upgrade it to meet the compliance of state and educational board. So if anything, the attorney upgraded everything in favor of the school, where the AIA sometimes doesn't have that amount of detail set up.
Did you understand that, Mr. Lindeman?
It was very hard to hear.
Yeah, well, it was.
Anma, can you repeat, because you're closer to him? Can you have him repeat?
He said, the changes were made based on the contract AIA.
Which is this,
best-
101.
101, in the best interest of the district. So that's where our attorney was making the changes and in legal matters in the best interest of the district.
So it was mostly legal and not construction related?
Yes.
No.
legally.
Okay.
Language.
Language.
Legal language.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Members of the board, any other questions on the contract? No. Let me go back to the money again, because when we talk about the draws, and I don't want to belabor it, but I want to make sure that the district's in good financial situation. If for some reason the money isn't available because of all of the red tape and all those things, is the district at any point in time ever going to have to draw out of district funds? In other words, if there's a late funding,
disbursement from,
This president. I can say that it hasn't happened in the past.
it has happened in the past, hasn't it?
With the SFB, no.
Okay, go
With the
ahead.
SFB, no. Sometimes it takes confirmation about invoices and work performed. But once we provide that information, they've always been wiring the money on a timely manner. We're going to be talking about huge amounts of money. Like, I understand your concern about that there's going to be a lot of money involved. But the district is in good financial situation. I'm not going to say that if an invoice for $3 million shows up, I mean, that we're going to be able to cover. What we do in those instances when we have big amounts of money, we contact the SFB first and say, well, I'm going to submit an invoice for this amount. So please just
Process it.
expedite and process the reimbursement back to us as soon as possible. Once I get a confirmation from them, then we issue the check from the district.
Okay.
So that's,
Okay, then just moving quickly, the liquidated damages is always a concern, and I noticed that it said within 30 days. Now, what, and maybe this is a question for the attorney, but what is reasonable within 30 days? If they say that they're going to have it completed by September let's say hypothetically, September the 1st, 2022, and they're nowhere near it, all right? Now, that could be a problem. So the liquidated damages are going to be determined, by reading the contract, are going to be determined by the architect, correct? He's going to be the final arbitrator on it, right? But what if it goes beyond the 30 days, or you know what I'm saying? It doesn't give a specific date. It says within 30 days. So what does that mean?
well, then, in reading, if you look at, I think it's on page 2, because that's one part that I read.
Right.
Quite a bit so that I could get a
Right.
better understanding. But it's, to my interpretation, it's, okay, so it's within 30 days after substantial completion of the work, the liquidated damages payable to the contractor to the owner will accrue in the amount of $750 per calendar day until the completion of the work. So, Alan, did you hear that question?
I could, and you have it correct. As you've explained it there, it makes, I hope that that's understandable, but that makes sense to me.
So if it extends, let's say, beyond the 30 days, for example, because right here, there's a 30-day limit. It says within 30 days, and obviously, our architects would be the middlemen trying to figure all this out. What happens in the event that it goes beyond 30 days of completion?
So if it goes beyond 30 days of completion, there is a $750 a day liquidated damages that the contractor would owe to the district.
Okay, but, and also I noticed it wasn't in the contract, that generally it's in there too, because this is important, because it could delay a lot of things, cause the district to be in a real bind. It doesn't talk about acts of God or other prevailing circumstances at the time and all those things, so that's just a flat 30 days without any consideration for anything else, so that if we go beyond 30 days and we get the board together and we say, we're gonna talk now about assessing liquidated damages or the penalty clause, and they say, well, we couldn't do it because materials weren't available, whatever, those kinds of things that are involved in construction. Is that going to come into play, or is that a solid 30 days? Because, it's been seen in the past that contractors make those excuses,
Unfortunately, when it comes to something like an act of God, that is something that is precluded, but they're going to have to prove that there was some material delay that was absolutely beyond their control.
Okay. All right, and then expenses. All of the expenses of the contractors and the architects and everybody else that's involved professionally are going to be, that are incurred by them, they're going to pay out of pocket, because the contract pays for the construction in its totality with all of the pertinent expenses that are there. So in other words, we're not going to have any expenses charged to the district for motel or rooms and all those kinds of, we're sure of that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, members of the board, anything else? All right, so your recommendation is to go along with it?
To go ahead and approve the contract so that we can begin construction.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. No more discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Alcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Berring?
Yes. Item 2B, discussion action on the approval of naming the Douglas High School football field as the Gib Dawson Field. And just for clarity, want to make sure that it has nothing to do with superseding the name that's already there. That's a question that was asked to me, in fact, this morning, earlier, that, the stadium is still Armando D. Lucas Stadium, and the field, if the board approves it, would be Gib Dawson Field. And I just want to make that clear. And then before we get into that, let me just read this. And this came just because it's important about the time frame and the consistency and the sensitivity to the time, and whether records and statistics and those things are maintained over a long period of time. This was written in 2000, December the 7th, 2018, and it says, Star reporters spent their summer digging deep into the archives and history books in search of the best high school players to ever come out of Southern Arizona. Teaming with past and present coaches, historians, and average high school football fans, we came up with the 10 best players from each of the Southern Arizona's 26 major schools. And of course, it lists Douglas, and then it says the best, Gib Dawson, a 3-time All-State running back. Dawson was named Arizona's Player of the Year in 1948. The 5-foot-inch, 170-pound Dawson held a majority of the Bulldogs' rushing records from 1948 to 2000, including rushing records in a game with 311. He's a member of the Arizona High School Hall of Fame and recognized as one of Arizona's 50 greatest athletes of all time. Dawson went on to play at the University of Texas from 1950 to 1952. Dawson led the Longhorns in rushing, receiving, total offense, all-purpose yards, and scoring in 1951. Named All-Southwest Conference in 1951 and 52, Dawson was a member of the Southwest Conference title teams in 50 and 52. He was inducted into the University of Texas Hall of Fame in 1984. Dawson was drafted in the 4th round of the Green Bay Packers in 1953, but his NFL career was cut short just 2 years in, as he was called into military action. So here's an athlete from Douglas, local, state, and nationally recognized. So I just wanted to give a little bit of that background before we we get a motion on the floor to approve.
I make a motion.
By Ms. Salchow. Motion by Ms. Second,
Second.
by Mr. Lindeman. Discussion, members of the board.
I just wanted to say, it would be an honor to remember such a great player that used to be one of our Bulldogs. I had that article in my phone for many years as remembrance of what can be accomplished out of people that work hard to get the best out of their life and best out of their high school time that they're here. It makes me feel very proud being part of this to name the field in his honor.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Well, I have a comment. You know, with our young people today, they don't always realize that what affects them immediately and is current. You know, in years to come, people will forget. People will say, who was that person again? When I first moved to town, and that's been like 41 years ago, I asked my husband, what's all this Dawson stuff? You know, there was a Dawson Steakhouse, there were different, you know, businesses in town with Dawson. And he told me, he said, that was one of the greatest football players to ever come out of Douglas. I was like, oh, wow. This has really prompted me to read about him and learn about him. And this would be something to also kind of tell our kids in school. We're naming a facility, where hopefully today we will, you know, approve this and name, you know, part of our facility after this man. And not only was he a tremendous athlete with so many honors, but he was a veteran as well and served his country. And that's something that I think that, you know, our students today should always be proud of where they come from and who came from here too. And this is just another reason that they should be proud.
You know, on a personal note, and I don't know if Dr. Ed remembers this or not, or Dr. Ed can, of course, speak for himself, but he was a legend when I was growing up. And even after I went to school and came back, everybody was always emulating Gib Dawson. And people need to know that he was an outstanding track athlete as well. He held many state records in the 100 and 220, and I think the broad jump for many, many years. And he also played baseball. But when I was a young boy, they talk about Douglas in 1947 or 46, I think, breaking Tucson High's 36. Tucson High was a powerhouse in the state. And he ran the opening kickoff back as a freshman at 97 yards, I believe. And I think, and Douglas beat them and broke their record. But I could go on and on about Gib Dawson, but I had the good fortune of watching him as a young man for many, many years in track. I look forward to it. So we have a motion on the floor. Anybody else want to make any comments? We have a motion on the floor, so.
Mr. Berry, I was looking at the pictures, and the one they had where it was his signature, and another one they had with the block letters. I would like to see it in block letters so that the people can really know, you know, who it is that we're honoring naming the football field for. That's just an idea.
No, and that was something we were going to discuss. Well, you know, I'm glad you brought that up because that's part of the motion. Angel had found that signature too. I don't know, I guess it was on the internet. I thought it was a good idea when I saw it, and I commented that, but maybe you're right, so that when people see it, if they're not familiar with the name of the field, it should be in block letters. So should we include that in the motion, that it be in block letters?
Yes.
Okay, would you include that in your motion with the
Yes.
second, Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Okay, so that'll be included. I'm glad you brought that up because we
Okay.
would have,
And if we can discuss, at this point, if I may, you know, we like the signature too. I mean, I thought that was, and
Oh,
I didn't know
that's
that
neat.
was his signature, right? Until Mr. Ortega said, and we like that. I understand that it's probably not that visible. What does that say? Or, you know, it's a signature. So the other part that if you can discuss is the location. One, you have it on the corner facing the Douglas home stands, and it's on the corner or right below the Douglas Bulldog. The other point of matter here is that Mr. Ortega worked on the renderings, Mr. Soto sent them to the company, and this is the same company, Hallis, that did our turf. And so we don't have any idea right now as to the cost of this, because there will be an additional cost. And from what we hear, it may be a little expensive. So they'll need to cut some parts of it, sew the name, and, so there's going to be work involved. So once we have that information as far as cost, we will bring that to the board so that you can approve that expense. But right now, so name and location, if that could be in the motion.
Okay,
And
yeah, and,
colors.
just, my quick comment would be, is if it's on the sideline, I think it would, the way I saw it, it would be covered up by the bench, the
Right.
players stand all the time.
So the sideline is here or the center there. And this is.
Oh, it's on the field, it's not on the sideline, right,
No, it's on the field.
yeah,
And then here are the block letters.
yeah. Okay, so we've already had block letters, and what's your pleasure about where it should be located?
Mr. President, I like it on the corner, not underneath the bulldog, because if it's underneath, it looks too cluttered, and I'm afraid it will get lost. When you see the bulldog, and then and then all the numbers and the lines. So I think it would stand out more if it's down in the corner.
Okay, well then let's do this. Let's have a motion to have block lettering and the location all in one, and that way we don't need to hitchhike on the first motion. So, would you make that motion?
Yes, I will.
For both?
Yes. I would like to move that we have the block lettering, give Dawson Field, and place it in the corner of the field itself.
Excuse me, did we vote on the first motion?
No, sir.
Let's make that an amendment to the motion.
Okay, please amend
Okay,
it.
that's an amendment to the motion. All right, is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Second, okay, by Dr. Gomez, all right. Okay, discussion on the amendment. So the amendment, which we'll address first, would be that it be on the location that's indicated on the left-hand side or the south side of the field, and in block letters, all right? Any discussion on that? Angel, do you have any preference on that? I mean, you're going to be deeply involved in this. Do you have any,
You want that?
Yeah.
come on up,
In
more
white
seen.
letters?
pardon?
In white letters?
Well, that, I think the letters as shown, unless they wouldn't be that outstanding, I mean, if they wouldn't be that accentuated, you wouldn't be able to see them. Angel?
We'll go with whatever the board recommends and approves. I mean, I think that's something that we can always work on after the approval.
Okay.
But we'll go with what the board recommends.
Mr. President, if that's the question, if I look at the rendering here, maybe it'd be more standing out if we're black letters, because the sidelines all the yard lines are white. So maybe that would bring it out even more if we're in black.
Okay. All right, so that's the way it's presented then, right? In white, all right?
No.
Black.
He wants in black.
In black.
He's
Oh, it was in
recommending black, but I don't
I
know
don't
what.
have it,
yeah.
okay. Let me
Yeah,
see
so
it.
the letters are in white.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'm just thinking that in my mind, it would get lost again if there's all white yard lines, numbers, but if we wanted to stand out more, like my idea was moving it to the corner so it would stand out, maybe black would be a more of an enhancement.
Okay. Angel, you go with that?
That's fine. We can even do black with white outline to even,
Yeah,
there's different options. It's something that,
And,
Yeah.
and Angel's really good with technology and all of this stuff. He'll say he's very creative. So even in the lettering that he kind of just gave us as a sample, there's other block lettering that is probably, more thicker or whatever, but he's good at that.
Okay, great. All right, any further discussion on the amendment? Roll call on the amendment.
Ms. Telcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes,
Mr. Barine?
Yes. Now for the main motion, any further discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Telcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
yes,
Mr. Barine?
Yes. members of the board, I think we really did well this morning by paying a tribute and honor to a man that was well deserving. And, you know, again, I'm going to point out that they originally had done this top 10 in 2006, and it was updated. They did it again in 2018, and he still was there. So the other thing, Angel, is on the retired jersey, I think you should start thinking, because, you know, once you get a process or a policy on how you're going to, the criteria on how you're going to recognize people to do those kinds of things, and it should be done formally and officially, then determine how you're going to do the jerseys, whether it's in a gym or on the football field. But the one for Dawson that was retired in '79, I think the way they don't actually have jerseys, of course, on fields. They just have a rendering of one, right? So could you think about doing that as well, and then where the placement would be? All right, thank you, appreciate that. All right, yeah, Bruce, yes, you want to come up to the podium?
I'm just curious if you guys have picked a date for the renaming ceremony.
Yeah, we're leaving that up to Angel, so that when he determines, you know, when all of this comes together, that he tell us. We certainly don't want to interfere with homecoming or senior night or mom and dad's night or anything like that. So we're going to leave that up to you, Angel. Your best judgment and timing on that. You need to work with him to find out about what we do with all that other stuff. Great. All right. Thanks, Bruce, for that. I'm glad you mentioned that. All right. Anything else? Future agenda items, Mr. Ramos?
Yes, I would like to have Mr. Pineda?
Pineda.
Give a report on I got some phone calls from parents that the food at the cafeteria is running out. Some kids go without eating. And I'd like to have a report on that and see what's going on.
Yes, and Mr. Ramos and I have spoken already, so I will get that on the October agenda.
No deep discussion, but food is running out?
He had a phone call that a student, you know, when they go get food, the food is run out. So I did speak to Mr. Binet, I got some clarification. I informed Mr. Ramos of what may be happening. It doesn't mean that, completely all food has run out. But usually popular items, may run out sooner than later. And so by the time a child gets to go get their food, that item may have run out, but there's other options. So I will let Mr. Pineda give a full detailed report.
Dr. Gomez.
I'd like a report on the, who's in charge or who would be addressing the situation if there is a hazardous material in the classrooms. Hazardous meaning by mold.
Mold, okay.
Okay?
So that'll be on the next agenda.
Yes.
And when is the next board meeting?
October the 7th, 5th? 5th. Tuesday, October the 5th. And I do want to just congratulate Mrs. Valenzuela. We had an ASBA Cochise County meeting yesterday, and she was a recipient of a new award called the High Five Award for Outstanding School Board Secretaries. And so, and then Miss Jana Selcha, who also attended the meeting, she was the lucky winner of a $25 gift card. And so it was between her and I was like, I'm going to get it. And then it went to Jana. So
I was surprised.
Yes, congratulations to Jana. She won $25. So,
And she's going to take us out to dinner.
I was going to say the pizza.
and I was trying to get her to nominate herself for being the county representative for some board position, right? And she's like, I don't know about that, but so it was a good meeting.
Well, congratulations to Alma, and I'll tell you, it's not unexpected. I mean, we know by working with Alma that she does an outstanding job, and she was extolled to the clouds about 6 months ago by our former dear board member, Mr. Sabal, and he was right that, and she got recognized for it. And I think we all know that. We appreciate you very much, and we're lucky to have you. Entertain a motion to adjourn
So,
by Mr. Ramos.
Second.
By Mr. Lindeman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.